The United Nations has warned of increasing meat, dairy and grain prices in the wake of extreme weather in the United States and other centres of global production. While technological advances in agriculture have allowed food production to keep up with population growth, there is little room for unexpected events. So just how do we continue to feed more people with less land? To discuss the challenges of global food security, we're joined from Canberra by Dr. Denis, Chief Executive of the Crawford Fund. Good morning to you, Dr. Blight. Thank you for joining us.
That's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Now, globally, the Food and Agricultural Organisation has forecast that wheat production could fall by up to 5.2% this year, and that crops for livestock could fall by as much as 10%. What will be the significance of this, not just globally, but also in terms of the Australian context?
It's very significant indeed, for both parties. First of all, this is one of a series of price spikes we've had over the last decade, and we can expect more of them. What will it do? It could throw another 200 million people into poverty. So there are many things we need to do to, on the one hand, prepare ourselves for those sort of price spikes and those sorts of emergencies, but at the same time find ways of increasing the underlying trend in food production.
So in terms of being able to prepare ourselves, what sort of steps should be taken? Have there already been precautions taken in terms of being able to boost production, say here in Australia, where we have had some great seasons, whereas elsewhere in the US and Russia in particular, they've had some particularly poor seasons?
Yes, there's a certain irony here that Australian farmers will increase production as they make judgments about the prospect of price rises. We've had decades, in fact, of lowering or flat wheat prices in our case, and now we're seeing some growth. Most estimates believe we'll see those prices steadily increase. So Australian farmers have to make their own judgments, of course, but they will make their own judgments about increasing food production, and that will be have a major impact on global food prices, because Australia is one of the major traders in wheat.
Dr. Blight, do you feel that given the vulnerability of some of the nations around the world, developing countries in particular, to fall in food production, that countries like Australia will need to step in to provide greater assistance there?
I think we'll need to do two things: grow and export as much wheat and other grains as we can, beef and so on, as we can, as the market and the prices will allow. But we also need to do our bit in supporting the international agricultural research effort. That would be one thing we could do to ensure the growth in the potential yield in grain crops and in other commodities. But as well as that, we've got to do what we can to close the yield gap. In Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, for example, actual yields of maize, to take one commodity, are well below 50% of what the potential is. So if we can find ways for the African governments to take decisions that will enable them to boost their yield to closer to, say, 50% or above 50% of what is possible in terms of today's technology. So there are two things. We need to increase the potential yield, and we need to do what we can to close the yield gap.
So in terms of being able to put in place technological changes to the way that we develop our food production, what are those sorts of initiatives? How do we develop that?
The first thing is to invest in international agricultural research, and really, in a sense, to regrow, do again the Green Revolution, which saw significant growth in rice and maize and wheat as a result of agricultural research, which yielded higher yielding varieties of wheat and maize and so on, and also new approaches and farming practices, which when adopted led to enhanced productivity on the farms of Africans and Asians.
Dr. Denis Blight, thank you so much for joining us on Weekend Breakfast.
Thank you.